One quiet death, erased before sunrise, left behind a single word in blood that powerful people feared more than prison. Rain hammered the empty streets as Detective Arif Khan arrived at the apartment building on 14th Street. Police lights flashed against glass and steel, reflecting a city pretending nothing was wrong. Yellow tape blocked the entrance, stretched tight like a warning meant for those who understood power. Inside the apartment, silence ruled. The victim lay on the polished wooden floor, no overturned furniture, no signs of forced entry, no struggle, just a body placed too neatly to feel natural. Marcus Hale, private banker, powerful, untouchable, feared by people who never appeared in public records. The official report would later call it sudden cardiac failure. Arif didn't believe in coincidences. On the glass table beside the body sat a shattered phone, crushed by force, not dropped, not accidental. Next to it, written carefully in blood, was a single word: ledger. Arif felt his stomach tighten. In his world, ledgers weren't harmless books. They were vaults of truth, records of bribes, hidden payments, offshore accounts, and favors exchanged in silence. Ledgers didn't just expose crimes. They exposed systems. Marcus Hale had been trusted with too many secrets. That trust had ended tonight. Arif requested the building's security footage. The response came quickly. Cameras had malfunctioned between 11:42 p.m. and 12:16 a.m., the exact window of death. Too clean, too precise. Neighbors were interviewed before dawn. One heard raised voices. Another saw a man in a gray coat, leaving late. A third mentioned an unfamiliar car idling outside. By afternoon, stories softened. By evening, details vanished. By night, witnesses stopped answering calls. Someone was rewriting reality. Arif began digging into Hale's financial history. Officially, Hale was spotless. No charges, no investigations, no enemies. Yet his client list included politicians, judges, developers, and law enforcement officials who'd never appeared connected on paper. When Arif requested Hale's access logs from financial oversight, the request was denied within minutes. Denied. That had never happened before. At 2:17 a.m., Arif's phone rang from a blocked number. "You're chasing a dead end?" a calm voice said. "Close the file." Arif demanded a name. The call ended. By morning, his captain reassigned him to administrative duty pending internal review. No explanation. No appeal. Arif finally understood. This wasn't a murder investigation. It was containment. And Marcus Hale hadn't been killed for what he did. He'd been killed for what he knew. Arif continued the investigation quietly. Officially, the case was over. Unofficially, it had only begun. He stopped using police systems, stopped making requests, stopped asking questions out loud. Experience had taught him that once a case was buried this fast, the danger no longer came from criminals but from institutions. An old contact from financial compliance agreed to meet, not in an office, but in a crowded train station where no one listened for long. The man's hands shook as he spoke. Hours before his death, Marcus Hale had access to restricted financial ledger. Not a database, not a server. A legacy system designed for transactions too sensitive to exist online. It tracked movements of money disguised as consulting fees, development grants, and legal settlements. The kind of names that never survived exposure. Most importantly, the ledger had not been transferred digitally. It had been printed. That detail explained everything. Digital evidence could be erased. Printed pages could not. Late that night, Arif returned to Hale's apartment alone. No warrant, no backup. Just memory and instinct. He checked places investigators rarely touched: vents, panels, hollow walls. Behind the bathroom mirror, inside a narrow ventilation shaft, he found it. A torn sheet of paper. Only one line remained intact, written in clean, professional type. Final settlement approved. No names, no amounts, no signatures. Just confirmation. Whatever Hale had been negotiating was finished, and he had been the price. The next morning, Arif watched the cleanup accelerate. Evidence bags sealed early, digital files archived without review, the case reclassified officially as a medical incident. Officers were reminded to respect procedure. Procedure was the excuse systems used when truth became inconvenient. But systems always left traces. A janitor at City Hall remembered seeing Marcus Halle weeks earlier, escorted into a private meeting room used only for closed-door negotiations. A junior clerk recalled a briefcase exchange but was advised to forget. Details. A retired auditor described a similar ledger from decades earlier. Another banker, another sudden death, another clean report. The pattern wasn't new. It had been refined through repetition. That was when Arif met Lina Reyes. She was an investigative journalist with a reputation for stories that never fully aired. Ours disappeared. Editors hesitated. Legal departments panicked. Her work lived in drafts and memories. She had been tracking Halle for months. Not as a criminal, but as a pressure point. Halle wasn't planning to expose corruption. He was renegotiating his position within it. More protection. More leverage. More time. That was his mistake. Power tolerated criminals. It never tolerated leverage. 3 nights later, Arif found a package outside his door. No return address. No postage markings. Inside was a flash drive and a folded note. You were warned. The drive contained fragments, timestamps without names, transfers without origins, anonymized IDs, stripped of context. Enough to prove corruption existed, not enough to survive releasing it. Arif copied the contents, encrypted them, and destroyed the original drive. That same night, his apartment was entered. Nothing stolen. Nothing damaged. The message was unmistakable. They knew where he lived. They knew what he had, and they were watching what he would do next. Justice without applause. Arif did not sleep that night. The city outside his apartment moved as if nothing had happened. Traffic lights blinked. Sirens echoed in the distance. Somewhere, people laughed in bars and ordered late dinners, unaware that an entire truth had been quietly erased within their streets. Arif stood on his balcony as dawn approached, the sky slowly fading from black to gray. The choice before him was no longer abstract. Expose the truth and disappear, or stay silent and survive. He thought of Marcus Halle, lying alone on a polished floor, of witnesses whose memories had dissolved overnight, of a single word written in blood ledger left behind like a warning instead of a confession. Truth, Arif knew, didn't always demand justice. Sometimes it demanded timing. He prepared multiple encrypted data drops using servers outside the country. Each file was programmed with a delay. If Arif failed to check in at set intervals, the information would release automatically sent to journalists, watchdog groups, and anonymous public archives. Insurance. He wasn't trying to win. He was trying to stay alive long enough to matter. The reaction came without noise. No raids, no arrests, no dramatic confrontations. Instead, resignations began to appear in the news. Executives stepped down, citing personal reasons. Senior officials announced early retirements. Committees formed overnight, then dissolved just as quickly. Policies changed. Quietly. Oversight increased subtly. Certain financial channels were closed without explanation. Power was adjusting itself. The ledger was never acknowledged publicly. Marcus Hale's death remained a medical incident. No apologies were issued, but fear had returned. And fear, Arif understood, was the only language power truly respected. Weeks later, Arif returned to the precinct. No one mentioned the case. No one apologized for the reassignment. His desk was where he left it. Clean. Empty. Waiting. Lina Reyes published a piece not about Halle, not about the ledger, but about systemic, financial blind spots. It was careful, indirect, impossible to sue. Readers sensed something without being told everything. That was enough. Justice rarely arrived in courtrooms anymore. It arrived in shifts, in corrections, in systems quietly tightening around their own excesses. Arif knew the truth still existed, Scattered, fragmented, protected by anonymity and delay. Not buried. One evening, Arif returned to 14th Street. The apartment had been rented again. New curtains, new lights, new life layered over old secrets. The city always rebuilt itself. He stood there for a moment, then turned away. Some crimes weren't meant to be solved publicly. They were meant to be remembered privately by those who understood what survival costs. Arif walked back into the noise of the city, knowing the system would continue to hide its sins, but it would do so more carefully now. And sometimes, that was the closest thing to justice the world allowed.